Let's put all of those paragraphs together that we just did. I did 5 different videos and I went over all of them and I chose to take out the one with textures and the one with shapes, which you probably already realized I was going to do. So I marked all this out and put it at the end. I'm just going to take it out. So after you finish your context and locations, you'll go on to observations. It'll be double spaced times New Roman 12 and indented paragraphs. Now, the parts that I put in red are revisions to what you saw on those videos. It says, overall, the monochromatic appearance of the picture creates a solemn and almost reverent feeling about it. Depending on where the sun shines, the picture contains various shades of gray. Black is seen in the barren trees in the picture's background, as well as in people's clothes, the 3 posts near the foreground, the color of people's hair, and an object lying to the left of the dead student's head. Darker shades of gray are noticeable in people's shadows, their clothing, and in the ground far back beyond the trees in the background. Well, I said I wanted to change that up. This is part of revising when you're doing this. Editing is doing your grammar, your sentence structure, your punctuation, but darker shades of gray are noticeable in people's shadows. Why don't we say and far back? Okay, so people's their clothing, and far back beyond the trees in the background. Okay. Why don't we just say, why don't you say and beyond the trees in the background? That would work better. White is the least seen color in this monochromatic photograph, namely in the sky peeking through the trees and the white or in the background. Those are white, or very, very light gray, but I'm going to say white. In patches of what appears to be snow on the field and in the scarf of the girl kneeling in the foreground. Okay, so that's my monochromatic. Now, remember, you have to bring this main point into the next one to transition, to go smoothly from one paragraph to the next. So I say, beside the ambiance created by this black and white photograph, and ambiance is the feel around you. For example, if you go out to a restaurant and the lights are dimmed almost to where you can't see, and there are candles at the table. First of all, you better be wearing fancy clothes or more formal clothes, but it gives a romantic feeling. And the darker the lights, the lower people's voices become. It's very interesting. So if you go, the ambiance at a disco is just out of sight, as we used to say. But ambiance is a feel that you get. Okay. I mean, you're not going to go to that dark restaurant with candles and put a mirror ball up there and do disco. That's just not going to happen. Okay, so but that's what I'm saying. The ambiance, it just gives a feeling that you're in a very sacred, solemn place. Okay, so beside that, lines play a big part in defining people and the landscape around this American tragedy. I've kind of thrown my own words in there, and actually, I put this one in. I want everything to stick together about that picture. The majority of lines are vertical and largely made up of people standing upright, along with fence posts and barren trees. One can also see diagonal lines among the upper branches. Now, you should know that's the trees. I wouldn't want to put the trees. Interesting, even the legs of people walking are both vertical and diagonal, depending on whether they are stationary or still or mobile, they're walking. Some of their arms are bent diagonally, some are straight down to their sides, and some form angles like the girl kneeling in the center foreground of the picture. You know, I think since I mentioned that, I would just segue off of that and go ahead and talk about her arm right there. Like the girl in the picture. Okay, so I'm going to go here. I'm going to make that a capital H. Her right arm is held at a 90-degree angle as her mouth seems to be asking why. Okay. Put a comma there and then make this a lowercase h. Her legs form diagonal patterns and her left arm is held out straight. It's almost like she doesn't even know she's doing that. I think she's just so panicked. Okay, now I did go ahead and change some of that up. I think since I talked about the girl kneeling there, I should talk about the angle of her arm right after, don't you? Because I mean that's a great transition into the next sentence. Her right arm is held, or I could say bent if I want to, a 90-degree angle as her mouth seems to be asking why. Her legs form diagonal patterns and her left arm is held out straight. Okay, so that's a straight line. Behind the panicked girl in the picture, the curve forms a diagonal line, separating the grass from the concrete where the young man lay dead. Okay, got that one. Now I got to take the lines and segue them into space. I said, while lines and other used space, remember, we saw that on the video, add to the photograph, void spaces reveal interesting patterns that are just as important in enhancing it, meaning the photograph. That's what it refers to. The sky alone forms several geometric patterns, such as squares, triangles, and rectangles. The girl with the sweater wrapped around her waist forms an upside down V between her two lower calves, while the man to her left forms, it should be an arc in the space between his legs. Way in the background, the space between another man's legs forms an arc as well. I guess it was Arky Day. On the far right, the empty space between the man's legs forms an arc. Okay. But I've already said that. Okay, we'll say way in the background for as does the empty space between his legs on the far right. There's no need for me to say, but okay. Way in the background, or I could say in the background, the space between another man's legs forms an arc, as does the empty space between the man's leg on the far right. I think that's good. Looking further back at the trees, the top limbs form triangles. The foreground, feet within the victim's feet within a few, I'll say a few feet. It almost sounds like somebody's feet are on them. I'll say from the victim's head. Are two unidentified objects that form an interesting pattern in the concrete around them. So imagine this, those two objects are not the pattern. It's what it forms around it. Kind of like a puddle. Okay, if that were, envision that as a puddle, then it's a splatter on the concrete, and that splatter forms a pattern. Okay, but whatever. But you have to look at this one at the void space, at the space where there is nothing. So look around those two objects, not at the two objects. Even the space on the sidewalk between the body and curb forms an imperfect triangle with a rounded point. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty much a curved triangle, but you get the idea. All right, so this is what that will look like. And notice it's about a page and a third, maybe, page and a fourth. So, and that's just your observations. So work hard on that. And on Wednesday, I'll release the tape on the message video helping you with that. Then on Friday, if you choose, I think that's what I've got on here. Let me make sure. If you want to turn in your rough draft, you can. I'm not going to give you credit for it, but I will look over it and give you some suggestions. Now, I know you can't see what I was just showing you, but I need to get back over to your announcements. And let's go to a new share. Is this it? Yeah. All righty. I just want to look at that and make sure. I think it's Friday is the rough draft. Okay, so your observations that I just gave you today, that's due Wednesday. So turn that in. I do give you a grade for that. Okay, then now I've looked at your first and second. I have told you you do not have permission to copy that. That's why it's in PDF. You're going to get a 0 if you do. But you can try to kind of pattern your words after that. But you'll know what I expect. So some of y'all are on you're in pretty good shape already for the first two sections. So I want you to keep the momentum. I don't want you to fall down. I want you to write a good observation section. And you might look at it and say, there really is nothing in textures. Yeah, now that fire escape one, I believe, does. I don't know if the Lee Harvey Oswald one does. I don't know if you can see what the texture of his sweater and Jack Ruby's hat. I don't know. But you might look at it and go, well, I'm not going to write something and then decide not to use it. Okay, that's fine. If you want to find 3 that really dominate, you might see all kinds of lines and you want to use those. So that would be one of them. You may see the color is so striking. I think of the color with the Afghan girl. You just can't go wrong using that. But you do need to look at color charts. Look at her piercing green eyes. What do the green eyes tell you? I'll tell you what it tells me in teaching the Diary of Anne Frank, which many of you took. But when we actually looked at pictures and saw videos of the the Jewish people who were in concentration camps or death camps, the looks on their faces, that's the same look they have. They're scared. They're scared. That I think is the main thing, that they just are shocked and scared and really not understanding what's going on. They look so pitiful. And that's what I saw in Sharbat's eyes. But anyway, just the meaning behind her eyes. I mean, wow, that's just something else. Anyway, getting back to this, and the list goes on and on. The little boy on the shore, the colors in that tell us a lot, and the texture of the ocean and the beach and all of the texture of its clothes, the texture of the clothes of the other person who's in there. You just have to really look at it. So let me again plead with you to work with somebody in your group already who has the same picture. One of you can, some of you have 4, so you have 5 elements, but why don't y'all, if y'all will work together, this is why I'm saying work efficiently. If y'all work together, you could say, okay, Catalina, you take lines. Okay, Joseph, you take shapes. Marilee, I want you to take the spaces, those voids where nothing is, and then tell them that. Well, it could be, and then you need to be honest. Catalina may come back and say, "Y'all, I can't find much on the lines," and so she might get that fifth one that nobody has done. But as y'all see, you're not finding some. It could be that you're just not looking hard enough. Now, this took me a couple of hours to do, but of course, I did a lot of lines and I, drew things. So, but it probably will take you a couple of hours. So you don't have to. I'm not forcing you, but I sure would use my teammates. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. Okay, and then let's see, because that's due Wednesday. Tomorrow I might release the last one because some of y'all, once you have the message down, you've got this down, you might be ready to turn in your rough draft on Thursday. You don't have to turn it in at all, but you have to turn the final draft in Sunday. Okay? As always, let me know if you have any questions. Give me an email. Take care. Bye bye.